Welcome to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. If you're a creative thinker with an unconventional approach to your industry, you just might be a happy disruptor. Join your friends at the Great Outdoors Foundation for honest conversations about tackling critical issues like conservation with an uncritical disposition. If you like to smile and get things done, this is the podcast for you.
Hello and welcome to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. I'm Kaitie Hartman and I am joined today by two of my amazing colleagues. Jen and Melissa, you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, my name is Jen Cross. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for the Great Outdoors Foundation. I've been with the organization, will be 6 years in September.
And I'm Melissa Campbell with Great Outdoors Foundation, Senior Project Manager. I joined GOF in January of this year.
Excellent. Well, I'm super excited. As you all know, Hannah and I have been having a lot of external guests, but I think this is the first time that we've had the chance to, I'm going to move this back, Aki, had the chance to interview some of our additional team members. So today we are going to be talking all about the Conservation Acceleration Fund, which these two are in-house experts on. For listeners who aren't environmentally focused or maybe aware, explain the Conservation Acceleration Fund and how it works.
Yeah, so the Conservation Acceleration Fund essentially is a funding mechanism that helps essentially stack private investment with public investment to further and accelerate the pace of water quality conservation, whether it be in capital projects or in different innovative thought leadership, but it's really just a funding mechanism. It's not a capital campaign. So we like to kind of stack those different dollars and get things on the ground a little bit quicker. I'm sure Melissa could explain it in a lot more technical term, but that is like the layperson's term of the conservation fund.
I don't know if there's a technical way to explain it. I think that's a good way to explain it, I guess. But from my perspective, it is just an amazing funding mechanism, because in my experience, and I've been in water resources for 15 years in nonprofit, municipality, consulting, and I had seen so many projects not be funded, great projects that would have made a huge difference in water quality. And it's just a way to fund those projects that weren't previously funded.
Mm-hmm. So you started to get into it a little bit, and each of you has a really unique perspective. Melissa, obviously with your more technical background, and then Jen from a fundraising standpoint. Help talk through how this is a comprehensive solution. Like, I know that it is funding geared, but there's really a lot more going on behind the scenes that is removing red tape and alleviating some of those processes. Do you want to talk through that?
Yeah, I can start. So not only is it a funding mechanism, we kind of use that as like the leverage point, but we're also doing a lot of work in the public policy and regulation space. And so trying to really figure out what barriers are happening, whether it's in the ag landscape or whether it's in some of our state and federal offices landscape, and how we can come up with creative solutions with our partners to be able to get rid of some of that red tape. Obviously we've talked about conservation mechanisms delivery being from the 1930s. And so there's a lot of different ailments, I would say, that kind of help or do not help farmers when it comes to getting conservation on the ground. And so what that also turns into is maybe some funding restrictions from our public entities and public partners that maybe they can't fund a certain portion of a project, kind of what Melissa was saying. And so it also is another way for us to kind of navigate that landscape when it comes to regulations and red tape and barriers, and really trying to come up with a holistic solution when it comes to accelerating that pace of conservation.
Mm-hmm. And then from the more technical side, Melissa, I know you mentioned your experience in consulting and with different municipalities. Talk to us about what it looks like when you were in one of those situations. You're a water resources expert. You're looking at how to get high impact projects on the ground. What solutions is the Conservation Acceleration Fund providing, and how do you think it is changing the way we approach conservation from start to finish?
So prior to coming on with GOF, we would approach projects would come to us, and we would follow all of the steps, all the protocols, checking in with DNR, checking in with the Corps of Engineers, checking all those boxes. And we'd run into hurdles, and sometimes, especially early in my career, I was like, oh, well, we just can't do that then. All right, now we got to completely go back to the drawing table, maybe not start again, but we would have to cut certain parts of the project out or just do something a little bit different. And now with GOF and like the backing of the team and Jen and Hannah's approach, and we question things more, which I really like that. Okay, so we get a no. Is it really a no? Can we
It's never a no.
Let's just approach that. How about we come up with something different? Let's take that no and say, all right, what don't they like about our approach or the typical traditional approach? Can we come to them with something more creative that maybe they'll say yes to, that meets everyone's goals?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's never no, it's a not right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a no to specific parameters. It's a no to that. But I think, so obviously our conversation is largely geared around the Conservation Acceleration Fund, but something that we're talking about just more generally on the Happy Disruptors podcast is this innovative, creative way to problem solving. And I love what you said, Melissa, it is a conventional way of looking at something. You have boxes that you need to check, and you have processes that you need to follow. And as Jen touched on, we've been following a pretty similar playbook since the 1930s, going on 100 years. So how has working with the Great Outdoors Foundation and on the Conservation Acceleration Fund, how has it challenged you to think about problems in a more innovative way?
I'll let you kick that one off since you're the newbie.
To think
Not
about
really,
that
kind of
one.
newbie, a couple months in.
Yeah, I guess so. My previous response in saying that just not accepting no the first time and trying to understand their perspective, whatever that hurdle is, whomever that we're working with, what's the right word here? What hurdles do they have internally, within their system, whether it's a state department or a federal agency, what goals do they have and what restrictions do they personally have that they need to adhere to? And how can we work around that, but then still accomplish this project or this outcome?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What I hear you saying is okay, we are both looking at a common end vision, and maybe there are some methodology differences or preferences, but how can we, instead of just scrapping everything, how can we accommodate those or adjust those so that we're able to work together as partners and ultimately achieve our common goal?
And I think that there are all of the groups and the people that we work with, a lot of us have the same goals.
Yeah.
We want to improve water quality and among other things.
Right.
But, for us, it's a large part of it is water quality. How can we get there?
I think that's been the fun part too, is that I feel like we've kind of unlocked some of our partners out of the box thinking when it comes to the Conservation Acceleration Fund. I said earlier that things have been done a certain way for so many years, and I think it's kind of taken an unconventional partner like a nonprofit that was based in Central Iowa to come to the table and start, thinking of innovative out of the box solutions. I think it's been really fun to see what our partners have also come to the table with because of those out of box solutions, and because we're kind of trying to pull some of those things out of our partners. And so it makes me really excited for the future, because I think there's a lot there that could happen as well.
Yeah, it's like they needed somebody to
just
nudge it
It's
forward
kind of
to
being a little bit of maybe a problem starter, or you rile people up a little bit, in school. It just took one to get everybody going, and
it's kind of pokes the bear a little bit.
Yeah, you're a happy disruptor, right? You're not causing problems.
And Jen has no problem doing that. So then let's do it.
Let's figure out a solution.
Okay. Exactly. Well, and I think
asking those hard questions.
Yeah, that's a testament to the I guess the receptivity of the Conservation Acceleration Fund. We have no interest in coming in and being territorial or stepping on toes or doing anything other than how can we advance this shared vision faster. With a wider impact than normal. What would you say, we've talked about the Conservation Acceleration Fund specifically, but what would you say as far as like being an innovative leader in the workspace? How do you approach innovation, and what advice would you give to people who are afraid to get that no?
I never take a no for an answer. I would say the innovation side of my career has really probably come out the last couple years. And I would say a lot of it's from Hannah's leadership, but also starting the Conservation Acceleration Fund. I mean, we drew on a napkin at the Dubliner in DC. Like, that is literally how this has like come to fruition. We're like, how can we fix all these problems that we're seeing, and how can we do it in our GOF way of, you know, being innovative and collaborative and stewarding our partners and our donors. But I think it's been really fun because I guess I probably didn't realize I had like the innovation, you know, kind of mindset behind the scenes. And I'm sure I did it every day when it comes to funding and public funding and private fundraising. But it's been really fun to kind of just unlock, and, you know, I'll have a funder that comes to me and it's like, well, we can't do this, we can do this. It's like, well, we can find a way to do that.
Exactly.
Like, we'll make sure that happens. And so any advice I would give is just kind of go with your gut. Obviously, my always biggest thing is it's not a no, it's a not right now. But trying to figure out like, okay, that doesn't work for them, so how can we make it work for them, but also work for us and our mission and our vision? And so that's kind of been the fun part about the last couple of years and seeing all that come to fruition too. So,
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Just more generally, how would you, or what recommendations do you have about taking an innovative approach to work, like in general? And what advice would you give to someone who is intimidated or fearful of taking a new approach and getting a no or a rejection?
I think for a lot of people that work in water resources and really anywhere, especially when you are early in your career, you tend to follow the pack, and you know, are leading the same path as a lot of those people, following the same trajectory. And you know, like I said, these are the protocols. This is what you need to do, and these are the certain types of projects that we do here. I think reaching out to key partners is really important. If you have a project that you think is a great project, you need to get support. Finding key partners that have a common goal and reaching out to them. The worst they're going to say is no. And even then, you might still be able to push a little bit. And then, finding those key partners that have that want to see a similar outcome, I think is really important. Reaching out to your legislators, like that's not something that I'm as experienced in. That's more of Jen's role, but they are just people, and seeing if you can somehow get some support there. Working for a city, I found that like just going to talk to our city manager, our city council, like they're all very receptive to ideas. And if it's not necessarily exactly what they want to see, they might have great suggestions for, you know, how to change that project up a little bit, or find the right partners, or connect you with somebody. And just, you know, I guess more of like a career advice too, just staying in contact with people throughout your career, because that might be able to help you get that project going. You know, you never know when you can reach out to somebody from your past and be like, got this great idea. I think that you would be a great partner, or, you know, give me some advice. So,
yeah, I love that. I think that's so applicable, like regardless of the field you're in. How do you think the Conservation Acceleration Fund, obviously it's used to target water quality specifically, but how can the approach of bringing together the public and private sector, sort of these unconventional partnerships, removing red tape, advancing this shared vision, how can it be used as a model for other critical quality of life issues? I'm thinking about, you know, housing or education or placemaking, you know, things that really make a community unique. What are your thoughts on how that can be sort of a model or applied to other critical issues?
I think it's all about bringing the partners to the table. And, you know, the mix of public-private is really kind of where like the secret sauce lies, I believe, because you need each other, you know, to get things across the finish line. And I think the biggest thing, kind of some of the things Melissa touched on too, is like you have to be open to the conversation, and you can't really be stuck thinking like, it's this way or the highway, and I'm not going to change my vision or my idea. But if you can have other people kind of at the table bringing their opinions, you will probably come up with a much larger, greater idea and greater vision than, you know, maybe what you were thinking in the first place. And also bringing the different partners to the table that have different, you know, career backgrounds, but also experience. That's going to get something done a lot faster than trying to kind of stay in your single lane. And I think that can be applied. I mean, we see it in Des Moines all the time. All these great, you know, community-led projects are all public-private partnership based. And it's because that is what works so well in Des Moines. And I think it can be a model for the rest of the country as well. And to Melissa's point too, a little bit earlier, our legislators and our, you know, federal delegation love the mix of public-private. And so if you really want to get things at a large scale moving, you have to have both that mix at the table.
What was the question again? Sorry, I was like very focused on what Jen said.
No, you're
like,
good.
Oh yeah, good point.
How can the Conservation Acceleration Fund be a model for addressing other critical issues, education or housing, food scarcity, you know, other major issues that require, you know, significant coalitions?
Maybe this isn't necessarily using it as a model, but I think that it impacts many areas of life, social, mental health, physical well-being, like all quality of life issues. I think that having green spaces, recreation, all of these water quality projects, a lot of them have public access. And I think that's really important because it's well documented that green spaces, open spaces for the public to recreate in or engage in or just spend time in has a huge positive impact on people's well-being and their quality of life. And that's probably one of the most important parts of our work is creating those spaces and that access. You know, of course, improving water quality as well, but just providing that space, I think, is just so important for people's physical and mental health, and really improves their quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Another thing that comes to mind, and I don't know whether either of you want to speak to it, but is just this like non-territorialism. Both of you have mentioned like everyone coming together at the table. You know, the Great Outdoors Foundation is certainly not the only organization tackling water quality. And we are of the mindset that this is an all ships rise situation. So tell me a little bit more about that and how that has affected the way you engage with external partners, not as a threat, but as an asset.
I would say it's definitely given me the confidence to go into a room and ask for help or ask for solutions, knowing that we're all trying to get to the same goal regardless of how we're getting there. I think that's kind of been the most fun part, is that we've brought very like, I would never have, you would have asked me 3 years ago if I'd be working in water quality space and doing public policy on conservation. I'm like, yeah, okay, good job.
Sure.
And here I am working with, you know, our Department of Ag and Land Stewardship and our different legislatures. And then also on the other side, like our funders of Google and Meta. So it's like a very wide range of individuals, but you know, those, because we don't act territorial and we know that we all need to do this together, it makes it much easier to go to those conversations and be like, okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. How can we get there together? And what's the solution that we can come up with? That is it funding? Is it policy changes? Is it, you know, we just got to change this one little thing and this can work. And so it's actually made it more fun because it's like, we're coming to the table with that attitude as opposed to like, no, don't step on our turf.
Right.
Especially when it comes to funders, because like obviously we all share very similar funders when it comes to this work, and so we all want to see it get done. And so how can we just do it at a faster pace?
Yeah, absolutely.
More fun, I guess.
Let's how about you?
So in my experience, and I think this is true for a lot of different industries, you do have that. We want all of this work to ourselves. We want to take all the credit and we want to do all the work and we want to have the recognition. And I think that's one of the most refreshing things that I've seen since I started with GOF is I can reach out to anybody, you know, and they're just like, yes, we'd love to work with you. Like, how can we help, you know, or somebody's reaching out to us and I'm like, how can we help? You know, like, what do you need? What space can we fill? What gap can we fill? So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, we have a lot of great partners.
The Happy Disruptors.
Yeah, exactly. We're happy for a reason, right? Like, we want to be, and I think that, I mean, we laugh about it, and, you know, the work we're doing is really serious.
Yes.
You know, we could have never imagined when we launched the Conservation Acceleration Fund that just a couple years in, you know, we'd be looking at, you know, record level nitrates in the waterways, and certainly water quality is front of mind for everyone. And it would be really easy to take a totally different, or have a totally different affect as it relates to that. And that's not a criticism, but I think it is just something that sets us apart, is we are relentlessly optimistic about our opportunities to affect positive change.
Yep. And fun to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super fun. Not that we're biased.
No, not at all. Of course not.
What most excites the two of you about the Conservation Acceleration Fund looking forward? Last year, we had more than $28 million in funding activated through projects on the ground. Those projects will mitigate over 1.2 million pounds of nitrates from the water. But that was just last year, right? That's old news now. So what are you excited about moving forward?
I am most excited about reaching out to all those people in the past that they had projects that couldn't be funded. I'm like, hey, I might have some funding for you. Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that, and I'm already working on that. So the other part is changing the approach to conservation. And this is something that we've worked on, and not something that I felt like I had as much of an impact on in the past, but I think it's really important. It's always something that I had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do, but just changing the approach to conservation, just a systemic change of having it be part of the conversation early on, as opposed to coming in later, and trying to, you know, be proactive as opposed to reactive.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, I think just the growth of the fund. Of course, I'm the fundraiser. I have to say that. Like, that's my part of my job. But I think just seeing that there is so much potential, you know, obviously Iowa, we share a lot of waterways with other neighboring states, you know, looking ahead where that could possibly go from a like geographical location perspective. And if we go outside of Iowa, what that means. I think there's a significant amount of opportunity to directly impact Iowa when it comes to water quality and conservation by partnering with neighboring states as well. And then just the policy side. I mean, we've seen such a change in policy when it comes to conservation, but you can see some of our federal delegation is still working to push bills forward that are, you know, helping farmers and helping deliver that conservation mechanism to the farmers. And so I think even though there's been probably an uphill battle for most on the political spectrum, I think that GOF is really in a really great position to continue to impact and have a say in some of those policy changes. And, you know, looking at some of the key words that everyone's using these days is efficiency. And so, like, how can we become more efficient when it comes to putting the money in the ground where it needs to go? I think there's just a lot of opportunity, not just for private dollars, but public dollars. Of course, I have to say that because that's my job. But
right.
I think I really do think there is. And money. It makes me excited to see like the future of where this could go. And knowing we're over 7 million raised right now. We launched it 2 years ago. If you would have told me we had 7 million, I would have laughed at you when we launched it. But I think there is a really great opportunity to be at over 10 million by end of year and then heading into next year too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for perspective, I think we invested just over 3 million in those projects. So we're looking at like over an 8-to-1 public private match. 8 times multiplier for private investors. And it just really shows you how quickly those dollars can help with scaling, which I think is so cool.
Well, I think even too, if we're, supporting a project that is, led by Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship, if we're giving some financial backing to that, they can then allocate those dollars somewhere else. And so it can really make like a ripple effect of conservation in Iowa. And so being able to kind of continue that process and that pathway, it just helps move, shift money in different places where they need to shift it, and allows our private investors to obviously feel really good about their investment too. So it's kind of like a win-win on both sides.
Yeah. And when they're shifting dollars, it's to other conservation projects.
Yes.
It's not, to something non-conservation related. That means that they can do more conservation projects.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sooner or faster or quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you most proud of with the Conservation Acceleration Fund?
You want me to go first?
You'll start. Yeah, you've been in it longer.
That it's actually happening. I think of the first one. That we're here, we're doing it. I literally remember launch day like it was yesterday, and so it's just crazy
cold
to see.
Day in like February.
It was
right?
April 4th.
Not that I remember. It was a cold April day.
It was a cold April at the Embassy Club downtown. I remember when we launched it, and I'm like, this is insane. Like we have no financial, how are we going to do this? And then we had our seed investor come in right at the end of that event, which is Athene, and fantastic. Thank you, Athene, and thank you, Grant.
Yes.
But it showed me that people really do care and really do want to see this work. And so the fact that, we've come 7 million since then, over 28 million leverage, that we keep talking in our, strategic planning that we want to leverage $1 billion in conservation. We're not that far off. That's going to probably be here sooner than we think. And so I think for me, what I'm most proud of is, it's hard sometimes to step back and look back and all the things that we've done. But it's pretty crazy that we came up with this idea and we launched it, and now we're over 7 million raised, and probably going to be sooner or closer to that, and then getting all this conservation done, and just bringing all these different partners to the table. I mean, it's been so fun to see new partners, new faces, new relationships being built, and that GOF is being brought into the conversation now in the beginning as opposed to the end.
Yeah.
Has been really fun and a good thing to be proud of.
Absolutely.
I would say.
For me, that summarized it very well. So, besides that, totally agree with all of that. Just funding projects that have a funding gap. That's been good to see.
Yeah.
And just helping out wherever it is needed. So learning, reaching out to key partners, learning what it is that they need from us, if it's funding or project support, whatever it is. Seeing that happen has been great.
Yeah. I think it's so cool that every one of those dollars, I shouldn't say everyone, most of those dollars are going to projects on privately owned land.
Yes.
And those are all individuals. Last fall we had a site tour and got to meet Joe Jardin,
the best,
multi-generation farmer. He's a veteran. He loves the land, and he wants to steward it well. And so that is so cool too when you think about the individuals that are impacted, and not just for that individual person, but Joe's wetland, or he doesn't have a wetland. He has a pond. He has a grade stabilization, aka a pond. That's going to be there for generations. Yeah. So that it's just cool to think about the legacy of these projects as well.
Well, I'm thinking too that without the private investment or the public-private partnerships that you mentioned earlier, that wouldn't have happened. He would still be trying to figure out how he himself can scrape up the $100,000 or $200,000 that it's going to take to put that on his land that he really wanted to do something on. And so I think that's what's fun too, is these success stories of these farmers and landowners that maybe probably couldn't have done that on their own.
Yeah.
And have wanted to for so long. And then, the public-private comes in and kind of saves the day. Well, that's what's important. That's what's going to happen, because I think that's what maybe some of the gap of knowledge is missing, is that it is not free to put these things in their land. Right. There's obviously stages of different, well, she can talk technical, but stages of different things you can put in that is a little bit less expensive, but at the end of the day, if you're trying to make a larger impact, these things cost significant dollars, and they work for themselves. Yeah. They have their own, they don't know what their budget is until the year's over and they see how the harvest went. And so being able to come in and help with that, and just I'll never forget, he was sitting next to me at that event, and he was like, I think the governor was talking and he was like, this wouldn't have happened. I was like, say it louder. Say it louder.
Can we get you on the microphone? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But it's like, that's, those are the fun stories, and seeing, he's the sweetest old man, but in his probably 70s or 80s, and he's still trying to make a difference for the generation that's coming after him to farm that land.
Absolutely.
And then too, just being able to financially help him with that.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously wanted to do it for most of his life.
Right.
And there was an opportunity to do that.
And it wasn't just us, right?
No.
It's us and Idols
and
and the private, the
crazy.
private landowner. Google was the lead investor on that portfolio. And I think it's just so cool because on their own, none of those individuals or groups could have made that happen. No. But it's the bringing together, the coalition that makes it happen.
For sure.
I love that.
Agreed.
I think that those projects too, it's not just the project and all the partners involved. They're setting an example for their neighbors. Yes. And that's part of the thought leadership that we provide too, just in a roundabout way. People see that, we promote it. Yeah. They're seeing it happen in their area, in their neighborhood, and then they go and they talk about it over coffee, and it matters a lot. Farmers listen to other farmers.
Yeah. And we're not going in and twisting their arms saying, you need to put this in, you need a wetland, or you need a saturated buffer. There's like a queue of, how many dozens or hundreds of individual landowners and farmers who have raised their hand and said, I just need a little bit of help, right? Like, I think that's critical.
All the money in the world to help with that.
Exactly. So donate to the Conservation Acceleration Fund. Okay, before we head to our final segment for the day, any final thoughts about the CAF or anything else you want the listeners to leave with today?
Donate.
Oh yes. How can they
you
donate?
help? You can help. If you you reach out to Melissa or I, of course, if you have a project that you're looking to get funded, if you are a funder that wants to help or be at the table for these conversations, obviously either of us will be able to help with that. But it's not just one person can do it all. It's definitely a multiple layer of coalition of people. It's public-private partnerships. It's being able to be open-minded and coming to the table with solutions. And, if you have questions, continue to ask them, I would say. And then, of course, you can donate to GOF. Yes. As part of my job, that's what I have to say. But there really is, if you're looking to make a difference and you have the financial stability to do that, we'd be happy to have the conversation. But also, if you're a partner that, has heard about us or has heard about the Conservation Acceleration Fund and is trying to figure out, well, how can I be involved? We want to have that conversation. That's what we do best is, finding solutions and bringing them to the table.
Yeah. And then once Jen gets the funding, then I can find a project. I can find the projects or match that project up with, potential funders or donors. And, whether it's stream restoration, wetland, oxbow restoration, saturated buffers, edge of field practices. We're interested in all of it. So
all of the above.
And we're not just doing this to put a wetland in the ground, right? We didn't even get into all of the benefits of these practices.
That's another podcast.
It's a whole other episode.
That's just Melissa too.
And we'll have Melissa on and we can get into the nitty gritty of the technical benefits. But all of this is improving water quality, improving habitat, biodiversity.
Yep.
Multiple benefits.
Yeah. We love that. That stacked benefit.
For the investor and for Iowa itself.
Yes. Yes. Well, okay, so we're going to close out today, as we always do, with a segment called Let's Whiteboard It. At the Great Outdoors Foundation, we are obsessed with whiteboards.
Whiteboards.
So today you can either draw or write your answer to our question. And that is, what is your favorite Conservation Acceleration Fund project that we've done to date?
Ooh.
And while Jen and Melissa are wrapping up their answers, don't forget to follow the Great Outdoors Foundation on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. The Happy Disruptors Podcast releases a new episode weekly on Thursdays. So if you are listening to this, please go ahead and leave us a lovely 5-star review and share this episode with someone you think would benefit from it. We've got a whole slate of episodes that we've dropped thus far this season, and there's probably never been a time when water quality has been more front of mind if you are in Central Iowa. Yep. So with that, Jen or Melissa, would one of you like to kick us off?
I'll start. I did the grade stabilizations or the ponds with the happy face.
Ponds, yes.
We heard so many things about ponds.
Fancy term.
Yeah, I think that was our first real experience outside of Central Iowa. Mm-hmm. And we went to Southwest Iowa, which was a different, at least from my perspective, a completely different landscape where I learned what practices work better down there. It's a lot more hilly. Yeah. There's a lot more, different elements of land there. And I think just the funders, we talked about Joe and the private landowners.
Yeah.
We were able to really highlight that tour with a couple of different key partners. And I think it was just such a fun project, and we're doing more of them this year into next year. But it's really that one-on-one with the landowner and that we had those conversations with. And the ponds thing has always makes me laugh because a couple of the legislators are like, they're called ponds. I'm like, yes, they are a pond, but the technical term is a grade stabilization.
The fancy word.
That's why I had to put a little smiley face next to mine. But
it's a pond.
I think it was just such a unique experience and a great one for our first one really outside of Central Iowa. Mm-hmm. And I know there's dozens more on the horizon there, but it was a fun experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And really critical for the Missouri watershed,
yes,
right?
Missouri
Which then
watershed
ultimately feeds into the Mississippi.
Yeah, and it was at a really unique time too because we just had all that flooding in Spencer, Iowa last summer. Yep. And so on that side of the state, there's a significant amount of flooding. And so grade stabilizations do help with flooding. So a very timely, very similar to what we're talking about now with nitrates in Central Iowa. But it was a very timely effort when it came to the flood mitigation and looking at that and then implementing these practices. It was just a very unique experience, and being able to go and see those farms and meet those landowners was really awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Melissa, how about
All right,
you?
I had one down and then I changed my mind as you were talking. It's not the same one, but I was like, oh, wait, what about that one? So being relatively new, I'm still thinking about all the projects that were done in the past before I came on and then the ones that came in recently. So the Dunlap project, which is associated with the grade stab that Jen just mentioned, Dunlap, Iowa, they had a IDAL's Water Quality Initiative grant for an urban stormwater project.
Cool.
And so we provided funding for 2 wetlands, 2 bioretention cells, and they're also cleaning out a pond, which all of these structures drain into. So the wetlands and the biocells drain into the pond. They're going to clean out the pond. So it is a multi-benefit, multiple practices improving water quality. So
cool.
which we would call a treatment train, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
A treatment train.
A treatment train.
I like that.
We like the treatment train.
Get on the treatment train. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that.
And it's nice to come in and we got all the information and pass it along to that investor and set that up.
Smaller community.
Yeah, pretty small community. And so we provided the match funding, or the investor did. So IDAL's WQI is still putting in half that funding. Yeah. But then the city does not have to meet that match requirement. So this investor came in and did that for them. So
amazing. And so cool to see like a diversity of practices working in unison, and that's really cool.
And the community is just very proud. From what I hear from IDALS, what they've passed along is they were just so excited to hear that their portion was funded. For a small community like that, that's a huge benefit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What did you put down?
I put down selfishly because it's in my neck of the woods. The Ankeny stormwater wetland. We had a ribbon cutting dedication for that in April of this year. Yeah. And it's the second largest stormwater wetland in the state, as you know. But the cool thing, as Melissa was talking about, it's a wetland. It's going to treat like 500 acres of surrounding like urban runoff. But beyond that, it has great habitat for local wildlife. It's surrounded by native plantings. We at the ceremony had a bald eagle fly over.
Not planned.
Yeah, the bald eagle was a paid actor that day.
Perfectly, it was great.
It's just.
There was also a blue heron.
Yeah,
yes, there's a blue
and
heron.
some geese, I think. But,
Yes, it's just so cool. That area is going to have public access. I believe they're putting in like a walking path around it, and we'll stock it with fish in the future. So, it's just really cool to see these projects in the communities that they're affecting, and seeing all the benefits outside of we're impacting the water that is coming into Central Iowa Waterworks, but beyond that, they're beautiful outdoor spaces where, as Melissa mentioned earlier, you can go and get outdoors. So, excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everyone. And we will see you next week.